Hello everybody, Flik here, and welcome to a Let's Look At of Dark Souls 2, the highly anticipated title from Bandai Namco. That's right, I said it right, I didn't say Namco Bandai. They have of course changed. I got this for the purposes of review, and so that's what we're going to be doing here. I'm going to try and keep spoilers to an absolute minimum in terms of story and bosses and whatnot. I am going to be walking around a few areas, so it's not just me standing in Majula, which is basically your hub world as it were. So there will be minor spoilers in that sense, but I'm going to try and keep everything to a minimum because I know everybody will want to kind of discover everything for themselves. Now, this is not a first impressions, unlike most of my Let's Look Ats, as I have been playing for about 30 hours now. I've left it idling a few times, but yeah, let's say about 22 hours-ish of actual play. I'm very near the end of the game. I have not quite finished it yet though. My character is around about level 100 and... hang on, I can actually just check that. 110. So yeah, pretty far along. So I've seen most of what the game has to offer outside of the very deepest, darkest secrets. So you're not getting first impressions here, you are getting well experienced impressions. And of course you are entirely entitled to just ignore me and enjoy what you see of the game, and also ignore me getting messages about taking our battle. What is taking our battle? Anyway, I'm also playing this prior to release, and the servers are not actually up yet other than for about an hour when they were testing some stuff. So every impression you're going to hear from me now do not include anything to do with the multiplayer. That includes summoning spirits outside of NPCs and also being invaded. I did get invaded once during the test, but I was uploading at the time, so the lag was so bad we were basically just kind of ghosting around each other. So I can't really tell you anything about the multiplayer aspect at this time. So yeah, you're just going to hear impressions based on playing against the computer, with sometimes having NPC allies, but otherwise having a basically entirely solo experience with Dark Souls 2. And rather infamously, if you're familiar with the writing I did for Critical Gamer, I really hated Dark Souls 1. I loved Demon Souls, but I hated Dark Souls. So where does Dark Souls 2 kind of fall, if you want me just to give a blanket opinion now before I go into an area and potentially spoil things for you? I really like Dark Souls 2. In fact, I would go so far as to say I really like it. I was trying to think of complaints I'm going to bring up while doing this video, and I had a hard time, while on the other hand I was making a list of things that I want to bring up as positives, and I've got a long list of notes in front of me for that. So I'm massively impressed with what they've done with Dark Souls 2. They have fixed all my complaints that I had with Dark Souls, mostly. There's some stuff that I would say is questionable, but all in all they have clearly put a lot of love into this that you could argue, say, the latter half of the original Dark Souls did not have. And with that said, if you are wanting to avoid basically any spoilers, now's the time to go out and, you know, kind of decide whether or not you want the game, and leave. Because I'm going to go fight stuff now, so I'm not just running around this town the whole time now. Which way do I want to go? I believe I want to go this way. I'll fight some very basic enemies to start with. In fact, I better tone down my equipment a little bit as well. Let's use a funky weapon, but it's pretty damn weak. Where are we? I know I've got it here somewhere. That's the one. Do some of that. So where should we start? Well, I've been running around for what, 3.5 minutes now, so you've already got to see what the graphics are like. It might be a sticking point for some people, but this is the PS3 version, by the way. But the graphics are not much better than the original Dark Souls, which in turn was not much better than the original Demon Souls. There are improvements, lighting has been used to much better effect, but overall it basically looks the same to me. Now, I didn't have a big problem with how Dark Souls looked. The graphics were definitely not something I had to complain about. But if you're one of those people who couldn't play Dark Souls without the mod for the PC version that improved the visuals a little bit, you might be disappointed here. I mean, maybe the PC version will be more optimised for next-gen graphics cards and whatnot, but for the most part, this looks identical to Dark Souls to me. I mean, you could take a screenshot of that without the HUD, say, and people would think you're playing Dark Souls. So from a visual standpoint, if that's at all a problem to you, the graphics, not amazing. Not bad, but not amazing. The engine on a whole, however, has been optimised, and by that I mean there's no getting into Blighttown and the frame rate dropping to 2. There are bits where the frame rate still drops a little bit, but I've never experienced yet anything like Blighttown in Dark Souls, so optimization has been improved. Now, by the way, you might be thinking, why have I managed to come this far in without fighting an enemy? And I suppose I should bring something up that I wanted to save for later. I'm not sure how long this will run, by the way. because I have a lot to talk about. But let's cover this now. This area was inhabited with hollows, just basic hollow enemies. You're probably familiar with them, and if you do want to complain about something, the basic hollow enemies have the exact same attack patterns as Dark Souls. That could be seen as lazy. I'll leave that to you to decide. But there. Also, please excuse my dog barking in the background. Of course, she's ruining things. Now, this area was inhabited with basic hollows, and now because I farmed them, after I killed them a certain number of times, they stop spawning. And that doesn't just apply to hollows, it applies to every single enemy in the game. Now, I'm not entirely sure why they've done that. It's either, as far as I can tell, to stop you being able to farm, because that's kind of what I was doing, right? I was sitting at this bonfire here, I was running out here, killing the hollows, running back, making them respawn by resting at the bonfire. You know, doing that over and over to farm a few levels to make the next few bits easier. So maybe they did that to stop you being able to farm indefinitely, or maybe they did it as part of a way of making the game easier for people who keep on dying. Because if you have to fight your way through 10 plus enemies to get to a boss that you're struggling with, it technically gets easier if you kill the enemies on the way so many times they just stop appearing. Either way, even if it's neither of those things or if it's both, I think it's a very good change. And I've been making use of it to farm in certain places, and also where I've found bosses quite challenging, I've found it really helpful that I can make the path to the boss easier. Oh, there is still something left alive up there. Okay, let's go play with him. Yeah, I can make the path to a certain boss I'm struggling with easier just by killing the basic enemies on the way. And that way you're still getting something out of it, even if you're dying and losing all the souls you're collecting. Although, saying that, if you kill an enemy so many times it disappears and you're no longer collecting the souls, that could be very bad. Oh, yeah, there's another enemy. Thank you. Luckily, these are the very first enemies you come across, so I can parry and block and whatnot easily. Combat, by and large, is the same, and I didn't really have a problem with the combat. Now, there is that thing that Dark Souls had where, regardless of how good armour you're wearing, everything seems to do the same set percentage damage. It's really weird, and it still seems to be present. Against hollows, you can't really tell. Like, I could have let him wail on me for ages and he wouldn't have done any damage, because these are literally the first area you come to in the game after the tutorial. But later enemies, regardless of what kind of enemy it is I'm fighting, basically one hit will do either half my health or 3/4 of my health. The combat is challenging in that sense, and it also makes it virtually impossible to use any kind of dual wielding class. Like, this archetype I picked when I started the game is the dual wielding one. And I thought, well, I'll give it a go in case they've improved dual wielding combat, because it wasn't practical in Dark Souls. It wasn't really practical in Demon Souls either, unless you're fighting players. So I tried it, and no, you really need to be able to block. I wonder why this is here. I could light that if I wanted, but I won't bother. Yeah, so it's not practical dual wielding. You need a shield. Evasion works, but blocking and then hitting is better. It's still better. It's still the best option. Oh, you're still alive. Okay. I'm amazed you took one hit, although this is a rather weak weapon, I suppose, so let's just do that. You can still do the animations when you're behind an enemy to basically insta-kill anything. It applies to player versus player combat as well. However, the parrying system has changed now. You can still parry, so you can, you know, hit a hit as a hollow comes in or whatever, and then strike back, but you don't do an animation when you strike back now, so you can use it to do other things if you want. Other changes to combat, very minor, but, well, actually I say it's minor, but I think when you first start, this is a big thing. When you block enough times that you get hit, so in fact I can test on this guy here. Look, watch, he'll wail away on me. No, he's too weak to do it. But if I block so much that my stamina bar all goes away, if you're familiar with the previous games, you do a kind of, and you fly back and you kind of get stunned. Well, that animation has, in fact if I let him hit me enough I might see it. The animation has been slowed down and extended, so you are far more vulnerable when your stamina goes down, and on bosses it just kills you. So you really have to get used to not letting yourself lose all your stamina from defending. Come on, hit me a few more times. I want to show this off. Hit me a few more times. Come on, do a triple attack or something. One more might do it. Nah, one more. Oh, you had to hesitate. Do it. There we go. See, that animation has been extended, like an extra stumble has been added to it, and it's been slowed down. And I double checked Dark Souls to make sure I'm not imagining this. The animation is faster in Dark Souls 1, for sure. So, against bosses who can often take away your full stamina bar with one swing and then do multiple follow-ups, you have to be really, really careful. So, although I still think that having a shield is by far the best option, and you basically can't live without it in some situations, it has changed in such a way that you have to get used to different combat mechanics. You can't just constantly defend a full 3-hit combo from a boss, because the first hit from a boss will probably make you go into that stun animation if you let it hit you. So combat overall I would say is smarter. I felt rewarded when I got used to it. Also I think these guys twist so fast you can't get behind them. Yeah, no, oh well, who cares? Just kill them that way. And on the subject of bosses, without going into any details about what kind of bosses you'll be coming across, I'm not going to be specific here. I'm just going to say in general, and I've killed about between 15 and 20 bosses. And by the way, by boss I mean anything that drops a unique soul. So you might consider some of them mid-bosses. I'm considering everything like that a boss. Like, see, I got hit there against the most basic enemy. I still took a significant portion of health. Of course, he is firing bombs at me as well, so that can't help. Throw another one. Thank you. Did I get him? I think I did. Yeah, his corpse just flew past me. Yeah, so as I was saying, bosses by and large, killed about 15 or 20 of them, somewhere in between then. There's a lot more bosses. And combat by and large against the bosses I like a lot better, because it's less about, here's this big giant monster. There is monsters that fit that category, but more of the bosses are, they're bigger than you, but they're not huge, and it's more about rewarding pattern recognition, rewarding knowing when to dodge, when to block, when to counter, knowing to only hit once and pull back, don't get greedy with your attacks. So the combat against bosses feels smarter, and there's less kind of gimmicky bosses. I think I'm actually up to a gimmicky boss, in that the only boss I know about that I haven't killed yet, I can't seem to make any progress on, because I think I have to do something outside the fight to make it possible. I'm not going into details because of spoilers, but by and large, I really like all the bosses I've fought. I've died on plenty of them. Some of them I've killed first try. I think the most I've ever died on a boss is about 5 times at most. But keeping in mind here, I'm not starting from a 0 point because I played Demon Souls and Dark Souls. If you're entirely new to the series, and by the way, no previous knowledge is required from a story perspective really at all. But if you were playing with no experience, I still think you would have a smoother experience, because it's pattern recognition. The bosses reward you learning what the bosses do. And I guess I could also throw some magic into combat here, although we're going into an area where enemies are strong against fire, so I probably should have done that prior to now, but whatever. I think this area was used in the closed beta demo type thing. I never actually played that, so I'm not 100% sure, but still. We'll just have a little wander around and see what we can find to pick on here. Again, this is all still very early areas of the game. Now he is alive, but I can't target him, so whatever, I'll just do this. And he's down. Do I want to go in here? No, because there's a chance I'll fall off that tree and die, and that'll be very embarrassing. I should probably heal as well. So that actually brings me on to another subject, the subject of the Estus Flask. When you start, you don't actually have an Estus Flask, and when you get it, it only has one use. So you might be thinking, well, what the hell are you supposed to do? Well, you get these life gem things, which drop from enemies. They're slower to use than the Estus, and they don't give you instant health. Watch my health bar as I use this one. It's a really slow regen. So that's what you have to rely on, especially even once you get your Estus Flask. As I say, it starts with one use, and you get more uses slowly. Like, I'm basically near the end of the game and I have 6 uses. There's potentially more, I'm guessing, because there is like secret shards. Oh, where the hell did you come from? That gave me a fright. Silly little hollow. I'm trying to talk here. In fact, I'm going to make you explode from the inside out. I love this new pyromancy, although he actually jumped away from the blast, so never mind. Can I still punch with this? Oh, I can. As pointless as it may be. I wonder if there's a back punching animation. No. That's a shame. I am going to punch this man to death though. There we go. Also, as a kind of random aside, and people might care about this or they might not, there's no Pyromancer starter build. I guess because it was seen as too powerful in Dark Souls, and I agree, Pyromancy is still ridiculously OP because you don't need to worry about your mage stats. It's harder to upgrade. I'm not going to say how, but it is harder to upgrade. But it doesn't offset that Pyromancy is too good, because you can use it even if you're melee build, which I am. I've never not relied on Pyromancy. I'm going to have to change that one time and try a mage build, a proper mage build or faith build, whatever. And both of those are returning. There's a lot of new spells. Obviously, as I just said, I'm not built a mage here, so I can't attest to whether the spells are fun or not. Now, there's 2 killer mutant turtle dealies coming at me. I might be not using the ideal weapon for fighting one of these guys. But Pyromancy does the job. Oh, he pulled away, damn it. Yeah, these guys are too low. Now I might actually let him hit me to show you the kind of damage that you take from basic enemies from the start of the game, even though I'm level 100. Hit me once, come on. Hit me once. See, that's still a significant amount of damage. And you might be thinking I don't have a lot of HP. I do, it's just that the bars in general are smaller in this one. I think it's 1800 HP. Let me check here. No, sorry, 1300. So 1300 HP is a bar. Like if I had that much health in Dark Souls, the bar would appear to be much bigger. I think it's just so that the HUD is less cluttered up the top, and I'm fine with that. And the icons below my stamina bar, which is also a lot smaller for how much stamina I have, are just the various buffs I've got from wearing my rings. And on that subject, Maya didn't want me to talk about rings. I'm afraid she's against them. You can wear 4 rings now, because I guess your character has discovered that he has more than 1 finger, or 2 fingers, as the case may be. You also have multiple slots for each left and right icon, direction, whatever you want to call it. Then you've got your basic armor slots, and then you also have these 10 slots for different items on your quick bar. Really, half of this stuff I have here I shouldn't have on it, because I don't need them. That'll do. Oh, I freed up a whole 1 space. And then you've got your ranged ammunition here, which I never bother with because I would have to trade them out. But the inventory management is a lot more streamlined. You can store your gear at any bonfire, or you can just keep it in your inventory. As far as I'm aware, you don't have a cap in terms of space in your inventory. I mean, I've got tons of stuff here. I think it just keeps on going. I don't see like a limit here at all. So yeah, you can carry lots of stuff, and it's all categorized, so it's a lot smoother to get through and find what you need. Like, that's a lot of spells I've collected here. So by and large, everything has been... I don't know if I want to keep on saying streamlined, because people might think I'm meaning that in a negative way. I'm not. I'm meaning it in an entirely positive way. I'm not entirely sure why he wasn't... Oh, there we go. He triggered the stun animation. I was going to say I wasn't sure why he wasn't doing any damage to me, but it's because he's so low level. Still. Well, we'll head back now. And I'll go somewhere else and show off another area. Again, I'll try and pick somewhere from the beginning of the game so that there's not too much spoiler territory. So let's see, what else have I not covered yet? Voice acting. Some of the voice acting in Dark Souls was dodgy, to say it in a polite manner. Is that changed here? Yeah, I would say so. I've not found any of the voice acting distracting, other than the Scottish characters actually sounding fairly authentic. There's also Irish characters and just general British sounding people. Peter Serafinowicz does a very good job as his character. I was a bit worried when I heard that he was doing a character, because I mainly remember him from his sketch show he had in the UK, so I can only think of Butterfield when I hear his name. If you don't know what that is, just search on YouTube, Peter Serafinowicz, good luck spelling that if you don't know how to spell it, Butterfield, and you'll see the various sketches of him being that character. But he does very well here, so does the rest of the cast. As I say, I've not found any voices particularly distracting. There's not a lot of voice acting, because I mean, you do very little talking. If I return to Majula, actually, I can just demonstrate some of the voice acting, I suppose. So we'll just teleport back from here to Majula first, and then I'll go somewhere else to do a bit more combat. So I think I've covered... Oh, sound, actually, on the subject of sound. I haven't found much of the music in the game to be memorable. There was only one boss track that I really, really liked, and I'm really looking forward to being able to find online or elsewhere, assuming they're putting it on iTunes. I certainly hope they are. I know it's, I think the OST was a collector's edition reward, possibly. Anyway, let's go up here and speak to my pyromancer teacher. And I'll be quiet for a second so you can hear a bit of dialogue.
Hello again. How have you been? Master Carillion and I are from Malphia to the south, a land lush with sorcery and pyromancy. Master Carillion polished his art at one of our renowned magic academies. But he argued that the academies were terrible places to learn magic. This quite angered Master Glocken, my previous teacher.
There we have it. So that's about on par with any other voice acting you can find from any other character. Also, I totally forgot to check this. Because the servers aren't online yet, this statue obelisk thing here tracks how many deaths there are worldwide, but if you're playing in offline mode, it only counts your own. So I'm not sure what this is at, and I'm a bit worried about it. But let's see how many times I've died. I'm going to guess 100. Okay, Alright, I've died 69 times. It says worldwide because it's supposed to track online. For the hour or so that the server was up for a test, I saw like how many times I and the rest of the press with press copies have died. It was up at over 2,000. And I can't imagine that too many people have been given a copy of this, so you do die a lot. But that brings up another important point, and I'm going to teleport somewhere else here while I'm talking about this. One of my major complaints about the original Dark Souls was that it punished you harshly as you started on your first playthrough, and generally almost borderline trolled you in such a way where you're supposed to find dying fun when the death wasn't particularly fair. And I took grievance with this. Dark Souls 2, I've died tons. You just saw, I've died 69 times in 20 something hours of actually playing. Every one of those deaths I consider fair. Even if it's me mistiming a jump and falling off, that's my own damn fault. If it's dying to a boss and I get angry because the boss killed me, it's still fair. It's because I let my guard down, or I misjudged when to attack, or, you know, I didn't block or dodge at the right time. I haven't felt like I've been trolled by the game. Now, previous knowledge helps, because every single chest I have found in this game, and I literally mean every single one here, before I open it, I do double-handed, and I hit the chest. And you know why if you played Dark Souls. So there are still ways in which the game tries to, you know, just punish you a little bit, but it's not where it matters. It's not bosses, it's not when you're first starting the game, so everything seems a bit more fair. Now that doesn't mean the game is easier, and I really hope that Dark Souls purists, and I know Dark Souls 1 was so massively popular, I'm aware my opinion of it is the minority here, I really hope they don't kind of take this arrogant, oh, this is too easy now. It is not an easy game, it is not easy. It's fairer, but it's still challenging. I mean, as I've been saying, most enemies will almost kill you in a single hit. Now, I actually do consider that fair, because the idea here is on more complex combat, where you're not just tanking through armour. There's no Havel's armour to let you tank hit. Well, actually, there might be later on, but I've not found any armour as powerful as Havel's armour. So there's nothing quite like that to kind of let you just tank hits that you're supposed to be learning. A much bigger importance has been put on pattern recognition. Like, I knew this guy does a 3-hit combo. He sometimes does a 4-hit variant. He might do it now. Nope, because I spun around him. If I stayed in front of him, probably would have. But, you know, these are kind of also fairly early on enemies, so their patterns are pretty damn basic. But yeah, I've never felt cheated by the game. I've gotten angry at it sometimes. I've never gotten furious at it. I've never gotten as angry as I did at Dark Souls, because I felt I was getting mocked by the game. So even though I have gotten angry in this at certain points, I got over it and I've kept playing. I mean, keep in mind, my Let's Look At series is a first impression series. I could have played this for 3 hours and done a first impressions on that. I didn't have to keep on playing on. I wanted to. And that's an important difference. I wanted to partly so I could do a proper review rather than first impressions, but if I hated the game, I probably wouldn't have put up with it. So I hope that goes some way towards expressing the opinion that I'm trying to get across here, that Dark Souls 2 is a very well crafted game. They seem to have spent a lot of time where it matters. And yeah, you could say, well, maybe they should have spent more time on the graphics. I mean, look at that hill over there. Look at that horribly detailed hill in the distance there. But it doesn't matter. That's not why people play Dark Souls. They don't play it because it has amazing graphics. At least I certainly don't think they do. They play it for the combat, they play it for the challenge, they play it for the thrill of finally beating a boss that's been kicking their ass for an hour. And it's full of those kind of moments. And I kind of begrudge not being able to find more things to complain about, because believe me, I looked. Could I bring up some petty stuff? The minor slowdown that still happens sometimes. Not nearly as bad as Dark Souls 1. Oh, you do a 3-hit. Yep, see, I got punished there because I forgot it was a 3-hit combo. I haven't killed many of these guys. Actually, I've killed these guys a fair few times. I might be able to show off the fact that eventually they'll stop respawning if I just farm them for the rest of this time I'm talking. I know people might find that a bit boring, but I'm trying to keep in mind that this is so highly anticipated. I really don't want to spoil anything while also helping share an opinion / review of it. You get combo. Let's see if I can kill you before you get to attack again. Let's get a bit overconfident here. Nope. Oh, I do fat roll with this. Yes, I forgot. Fat roll is best roll. So, I never really covered the story, did I? I kind of assumed that people who would watch this are people who are massively interested in into the lore anyway. Also, I never noticed my whole time doing this that there was a switch here. What does this do? I apologise if this is spoilers, but I don't know what this does either. Oh, I know what that did. That's going to help me on subsequent playthroughs greatly. Okay, right, good. I completely forgot what I was talking about now prior to doing that, but I'm really honestly glad I found that. So what else can I talk about? The pace of the game? Or maybe the scale of the game. That's something to talk about. I didn't like Dark Souls, but I watched that Japanese player finishing the whole game in an hour. Massively, massively impressive. And yeah, they kind of used exploits at points, but you know, that's part of the fun of speedrunning. Could the same be done here? I'm going out on the line on the limb here by saying that I don't think it's possible to finish this in 2 hours unless you can sequence break to astonishing degrees. The basic theme of the game is you are turning hollow, and by the way, they implement that rather well. You don't lose as much HP when you die and turn hollow. Like, I'm human right now, for the record. But on subsequent deaths, your health keeps on lowering as you become more and more hollow, and you use effigies to turn human in this. You can also use effigies in a manner which I find very appealing from a multiplayer balance point of view, because another grievance I had with Dark Souls was it gave too much power to invading players. Now, there's a few things you can do here. If you choose to burn an effigy in a bonfire rather than using it to return your humanity, although you can technically use it to do that too. I mean, if you only have one left, say, you can go to burn here, and you... Oh, for the record, I totally forgot I had that. I'm just going to quickly... Oh, I can't do it in that bonfire. I forgot I had a item to upgrade my my flask. But yeah, you can choose to burn an effigy. I'll just waste one here for the... Oh, why can't I burn it here? Ah, because I'm not out in a place with a boss still existing. If you burn an effigy in a bonfire, people can't invade you for that life, I think. It's not really accurate on how long the effects last, but you won't get invaded, and that's really good. And you can also appeal for help from players with your... I've got my white soapstones, etc. I've got two, actually. I'm not sure what the difference is. I've got white soapstone and small white soapstone. I also have blue cracked orbs to do that. You know, you jump in a game that's been invaded, and you're to kill the invader to help the owner of the world. Another really, really fun thing that I only just found prior to recording here. There's an item where if you have been invaded, you can use the item and the enemy player will be seen as an enemy by the enemies on the map. So say I'd been invaded and there was a red phantom, black phantom, whatever, standing next to that enemy down there, and I used this certain item I found, he would become aggressive to the invading player, and I think that's a fantastic way to balance things. I don't think it's a very common item though. I've only found one, and as I say, I'm near the end of the game at this point. But I haven't been every single place, and every kind of major area there's been items I haven't worked out how to get to. Because I'm not kind of big on randomly just throwing my life away over and over, especially because you lose more HP the more often you do it without turning human. Down you go. What are you giving me? Probably a cracked blue orb, yep, because they spam these drops. So what else can we move on to talk about here? Well, I was kind of covering the size and hadn't quite finished it. Yeah, the game, by and large, it can definitely be done faster than what I've been doing. I mean, now that I know the semi-optimal standard way to do the bosses, I could do it a lot quicker. But even then, the game as a whole feels large. And even when I do the kind of main objective of... I never even finished covering that, did I? I apologise, I get distracted when I'm fighting in combat. The main objective is to collect 4 large souls in order to gain access to the king so that he can potentially cure you of the curse that has turned you hollow. Or is turning you hollow. So... let's go through here and kill these guys again. Turn pyromancy. There we go. Come out here, and hopefully they'll not respawn and you can get to see that in action. Back away, back away. I forgot I did fat roll, and I apologise for getting distracted from what I was saying about the story again, but still. So yes, I can do the game a lot quicker now that I know the ideal order. 2 swings or 3 swings? Nope, just the one that time. But it still feels like a much bigger game. It also feels like a more finished game. I haven't found an area that felt like, oh, you ran out of time or something, didn't you? No, there's nothing like that so far, anyway. There could be a whole secondary objective once I finish this first one. I'm not entirely sure where I go, because I think I have everything I need, even though there's still a boss I know how to get to. So, I wasn't sure if it was potentially an optional boss, you see. But the game is layered in such a way that I don't think you can sequence break much, because you have to fight your way to the kind of major the major souls that you have to collect. So either way, it feels like a bigger game to me. Even if you ignore the speedrunning aspect, just in a general playing the game to enjoy it kind of sense, you're going to get more hours out of Dark Souls 2, I think, because it feels like a longer standard game. Throw in New Game Plus, assuming it's there. I assume it is, they'd be mad not to. And then all the multiplayer aspects of playing either as a cooperative friend, or defending a random player from an invading player, or being an invading player yourself. There's a lot here. You could argue it's fairly samey to Dark Souls 1, but given how successful Dark Souls 1 was, is that really a bad thing? I would say not. And I absolutely love everything that they have changed from Dark Souls. Purists may kind of get on their high horse and not approve. I think they'll just be doing it for the sake of that's because it's the in thing, because Dark Souls will never be beaten as the best game ever made ever. Dark Souls 2 is superior to Dark Souls 1 in every single way. That is the flat out truth. I say that as someone who disliked Dark Souls, granted, so you may have to go look for an opinion of someone who loved Dark Souls and see if they agree. But everything is done better here. I can't see how you could possibly not see that this is the better game as a result of the positive changes they have made to this. Now, I'm actually going to run back because I'm kind of wrapping up here because I think I've covered everything I majorly want to cover without going into spoiler territory. On that subject, if you have any very specific questions about Dark Souls 2, I would highly suggest that you leave a comment, and I will tell you in the comment. And if you're worried about spoilers, I'll put spoilers in capital letters before any comment which I consider a spoiler. So just don't read it if you're worried about that. And if you don't care about spoilers and do want information, fair enough, just ask in the comments. I'll reply with a spoiler tag and let you know what you want to know. This video, by the way, will be posted on the evening of the release in the US on the 11th of March. However, people in the UK have to wait until the Friday the 14th. Well worth waiting for, especially if you're a fan of Dark Souls or if you love Demon Souls. If you're entirely new to the series, previous knowledge is not required, but you might... I'm trying to think balance-wise, would you find the start of Dark Souls 2 unfair or not? I think it teaches you quickly enough. You'll probably die a few times early on. The first boss is actually fairly challenging. Like if you compare the first boss of... Oh, I totally forgot. 3 hits here. If you compare the first boss of, say, Demon Souls, which was Phalanx, yes, and the first boss of Dark Souls, which was... Well, not counting the demon that kills you. What was the first boss? The Taurus demon in Dark Souls. I would actually say the first boss of Dark Souls 2 is the harder of the 3. So, kind of, maybe it scales a bit badly there, but you can get an NPC to help you, assuming you're human. So, you know, maybe that balances it out. And from there, once you kill the first boss, because it doesn't guide you what to do next, I kind of stumbled my way to 3 different bosses, and they all seemed to equally kick my ass, so I wasn't sure what to do. That had me stuck for a little while. That's the only time that's happened. Once I kind of realised, oh, hang on a minute, if I actually pay attention and don't just constantly try and wail on this guy, this boss is actually pretty damn easy. And then I made progress and pretty much never stopped since then. I've been playing this non-stop since I got it. When did I get it? I got it on about a week ago at this point. Yeah, I've been playing it pretty much non-stop every single day. So it has me addicted. As I was saying, this is not just because I wanted to do a review. I could have done a first impressions and stopped a long time ago. But I've been really enjoying my time with the game. And if I was any lower level, he would certainly have taken away all my stamina with that first couple of hits. Now, unfortunately, I'll do this one more time, rest at the bonfire, just to see if the guy at the very bottom of the ladder disappears. I really honestly thought he would have by now, because I've been killing him a lot. This was kind of like my go-to farming location after the hollows in the first area dried up a little bit. So we'll see. But yeah, I've covered the release date. Now, if you want the PC version, you have to wait until April 25th. Not sure why it's over a month's wait. It's not fair. Is it worth waiting for? If you want... Well, if you want... is it worth the wait? If you don't have a console to play it on, it's obviously worth the wait. Try and avoid, you know, spoilers and whatnot from elsewhere in the meantime. But if you have access to the console version and potentially the PC version once it's out... It's hard to say if the PC version is better. If the PC version is open to modding, as was the first Dark Souls, then I would say that the PC version is going to be superior. not just because of, you know, little maybe frame rate fixes or graphical fixes that the player base could come up with. There's probably going to be more people playing it, and it hopefully will not have the... Well, in fact, it can't possibly have Windows games for Windows Live, can it? Aha! Yes, see, look, it's happened. I've killed this enemy so many times, he will never return. You may consider that a bad mechanic. I consider it a good one because it will make it easier for new players, and it also stops you being able to farm levels on easy enemies past a certain point. I wonder if the ones down there are still there. Yeah, I've killed them less. They've probably got like maybe 2 or 3 spawns left in them. So I will return to the bonfire here and wrap up. I think I've covered everything I want to. I'm checking my notes now, my comprehensive notes. I've covered the blocking animation, I've covered the difficulty that I consider to be fair while also just as challenging, if not more challenging, than Dark Souls. Slightly average graphics, you've seen for yourself, I don't really need to bring those up, do I? Sound I have covered, the pacing of the game I have covered. There is still that general, yeah, you're given an overarching theme, but then you're kind of left to your own devices. And unlike Dark Souls, there isn't as much choice in the order in which you can do things, I think. I mean, I'll leave that to sequence breakers to decide for sure. It feels a lot more like there's one true path that does this well. I could be wrong, though. I mean, who knows? I guess we'll see, I suppose. Also, is there any areas as annoying as Blighttown? Not from a frame rate suffering point of view, but there are some dangerous areas, yep, that I would say are pretty nasty to visit. But overall, I would highly suggest picking up Dark Souls 2, and that is a sentence I never thought I would say after how much I disliked Dark Souls 1. But yeah, it's a well-made game. It's a well-made, challenging game. If you're into this sort of adventuring, you're going to like it a lot. You're probably not going to find much to complain about either. I mean, maybe at launch oh, that was sneaky of you. Maybe at launch the servers will be crap or something, but I've been playing offline almost exclusively because the servers aren't up yet. The game is doable solo, clearly, because I'm doing it solo now. So, yeah, I can't think of any major complaint, and I really kind of wish I could, because then it would feel more balanced as a review. But Dark Souls 2 is really good. Highly, highly suggested. Very well made game. And I think that's going to wrap things up here. I did go on a bit. I apologise if you kind of lost interest. But yeah, pick it up. If you like what you've seen, if you like what you've heard. It's a great game. I still can't believe I said that. It just is. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up now. Thank you for watching the Let's Look At. And by the way, I am considering creating a new character to do a playthrough. If I do, and if you are interested, please consider watching and supporting the series. That would be wonderful if you did. I may also screw myself over by going a mage. Very inexperienced as playing as a mage, but we'll see what happens. So, my name has been Flik. This has been Let's Look At Dark Souls 2. One to watch, one to look out for. And thank you for watching. Ta-ta for now.